About you, but I often wonder, which product do I use? What's in it? Is it good for me? Is it good for the environment? Just all these different questions that play in there. So, with us today is Janet Hurley, and she is going to help us figure out what is in those cleaning products. So, Janet, I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to you. You're muted.
It didn't unclick. Sorry about that. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our unwanted guest series. Do you know what's in your cleaning products? As Liz said, I'm an extension program specialist for Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, and I hope today to just share a little bit of information about what we've been using in and around our homes to help clean and disinfect and what all that really means. So let's get started, and we'll be talking about those things that you might not think about that are around your house and you think of it as a pesticide. Because most folks, when they think pesticide, they think of what goes on in their lawn and garden, or maybe they're trying to get rid of bugs in their bathroom or something like that. But cleaning products, and there's a variety of them, and even pool products are also registered pesticides with the US EPA. And we're going to talk about a variety of products that you've probably been using. But before we get started, I want to remind y'all about three major terms that are used when you hear from the CDC, the EPA, even the FDA, your local public health official. You know, you've heard it a lot. All right, well, what's cleaning? Cleaning is removing germs. Those are dirts, impurities from surfaces of objects. I mean, you've cooked dinner and maybe you made a mess. Well, yeah, if you just cleaned it up with a paper towel, that would be some cleaning. But if you were cleaning it with soap and water, that's really cleaning. Disinfecting actually kills the germs. So instead of just cleaning the surface, I might use something like a cleaning product, and we'll talk about that. But what it will do is it sometimes kills the germs, but it may not actually kill clean the surface. It all depends. So, I mean, this is why we talk about clean, disinfect, and then sanitize. So sanitization lowers those numbers of germs on that surface or on objects that keep them to a safe level. And what we mean by that is generally in public health, we do understand those inanimate objects, those things we touch every day. I mean, there's going to be some type of transfer of bacteria or germs or viruses because of what they are. But for the most part, if we're in a high risk situation, then yes, we use sanitization. And generally what that does is it allows things to be cleaned, disinfected, and then sanitized, and then kept clean generally for a while, means no people come in. And that helps reduce the spread. So when we're talking about cleaning and disinfecting our surfaces, folks might just need to understand what routine cleaning is. That could be anywhere from daily to weekly, depending on the situation and who you are. If you're one person living alone, is different than if you're a multi-generational household, because one person, one isolated area, multi-persons coming in and out, then your high-touch services, desks, countertops, doorknobs, computer keyboards, TV remotes, faucet handles, phones, toys, any of that, if there's lots of people in the house, then lots of germs are going back and forth. Bathrooms are, advertising helps remind us of this, But it's also, we think toilet bowl, but there's also the kitchen, the bathroom sink. It's also sides of the counters in the bathroom. So understand that and make sure that routine cleaning is being done. Again, immediately clean surfaces and objects that are visibly soiled. The sooner you get it up, the sooner it's out, and it's a lot easier to deal with. Now, I realize that some of our viewers may be dealing with either a sick child, a parent, a loved one, and that could be anything from having, an empty stomach bug to, something different than just COVID. All of that, bodily fluids can transmit some type of diseases. So if you're a caregiver or you're having to clean up around someone who's been sick, remember, caution yourself as well. If you're dealing with bodily fluids, we always talk about covering our hands and making sure that we dispose of that stuff quickly and then remove it for where others are not going to be exposed to it so that everyone stays healthy. Now, when we talk about routine cleaning and disinfecting, and then we talk about disease transmission, most of us, when we're talking about disease transmission, prior to last year, it was always the flu. But yes, we're all familiar with the SARS-CoV. But it's important, and it's really important now. Match your cleaning and disinfecting needs based on what is going on in your specific situation. So again, prior to COVID, when we were talking about either the cold, rhinovirus, the flu, which is an adenovirus, and or now we're talking about COVID, all of them spread differently, and all of them can live on surfaces at a little bit different time. It's possible for people to be infected through contact with contaminated surfaces or objects, but the risk is really low with COVID. But if you come back up here with the flu, that can happen. We do know that it transfers. So again, what's going on in your house? Again, the flu virus is a relatively fragile virus. That's the bonus of it. So if you do standard cleaning and disinfecting practices, it's sufficient to remove or kill them. So one of the things we heard with over the last year, how do you clean for the SARS-CoV versus how do you just clean? Well, for the most part, if your home is just like my home, day in and day out use, no one's sick, special cleaning, no, but I would wipe down what needs to be done in the house. Someone's been sick in my home, and it doesn't matter if they've got the flu, maybe they had something else that was a contagion. Then yes, cleaning walls, doing the laundry, really doing a deep cleaning, that may not be necessary depending on what they've had, what was going on, and it may be limited to a room. But remember, if you're doing this, you sure don't want others around in your home, because again, some of these chemicals can be harsh, and we're going to talk about that in the future. So clean and disinfect correctly. I cannot stress this enough. If you're buying a product, before you buy it, follow all the label directions. Read it before you purchase it. Read it before you use it. Read the label before you dispose of it. Make sure before you do disinfection that you do that routine cleaning, soap and water, mild cleaning solutions. Rinse with water and follow with a registered EPA disinfectant. Now there's a whole list, and prior to COVID, we didn't have this organized of a list before. Now they have this list called the List N products with the EPA, and you can actually go there and check out what they actually have to offer. Again, if the surface is not visibly dirty, because you want to clean that first, then you can use an EPA registered product that cleans by removing some of the germs and then disinfects by killing some of the germs. And there are some products that we'll talk about in a few seconds. Typically though, and this is extremely important to remember, disinfection means that once you put something on the surface, it must remain there. It's called the dwell time for at least 3 to 5 minutes. Sometimes the label will say longer depending on it, and that's why it's so important to read this label. So when you're using your products, it's really, really important to look at a few things. So you pay attention to the hazard warnings and directions on the label. If the label's got a thing that's got these signal words, and we'll see a couple of examples, caution, warning, or danger, then that tells you to be very, very cautious about what you're using. Typically, cleaning products and disinfectants call for the use of gloves or eye protection. And, gloves doesn't have to be all the way up, but at least, nitrile or some type of rubberized, because most people can't wear latex, but most of those gloves that we wear on our hands, so that, again, the cleaning solution or the disinfection solution isn't going into my skin surface. Don't mix cleaners and disinfectants. We'll talk about that, but there are some big hazards between mixing bleach and ammonia. Again, ensure that those who are using those cleaners and disinfectants read and understand the labels and understand safe and appropriate use. Typically, with all of our pesticides, it doesn't matter if it is an antimicrobial, a bactericide, a disinfectant, a sanitizer, or if it's something we use out in the yard, less is generally better than more. So we always want to be cautious about these products. Some of the things that we might want to consider, especially if someone's sick in our house, nothing says happiness like an adolescent who's got the stomach bug. And we don't want to touch their mess, but at the same time, we also know it needs to go someplace. But again, make sure there's trash cans close to those who are sick. Even if they've got a runny nose and stuff and they just say it's allergies, make sure that they're tossing their tissues, okay? Make sure that you're not touching tissues or other human waste when you're entering waste baskets. Do wash your hands with soap and water after you've taken out the trash. And then again, make sure if you're having to clean up after someone who's had a bodily fluid event. Yes, I was just thinking of a child and projectile vomiting. Make sure that you at least use gloves and put that in the trash bag. Sometimes we don't always think about that, but again, if you're trying to keep yourself happy, yes, healthy, you want to take precautions as well. And like I said, disposable gloves are a great thing to have around the house. The small little trash bags, or maybe when you go to the grocery store, that's a way to recycle. So when we talk about those harmful effects of chemicals, it's that exposure. And what we're really worried about is, and this happens time and time again. If you look at poison control and you look at the reporting that we see even in Texas and versus nationwide, some of the top ones are accidental ingestion of a pine oil after the bottle fell and splashed on the face. So in other words, you were cleaning and whatever you were using, it fell and it hit you in the face and you get a nice sip of it. Someone was trying to really do a good job, but they mixed chlorine and ammonia in a small space, caused toxic fumes. This one can really result in not just unconsciousness, but we do know it can result in death. And then accidentally sprayed a coworker in the eye with a hospital disinfectant. There's been a couple of mishaps, especially since we've been dealing with COVID, on folks not using the equipment correctly. So again, these are just things that before you rush to purchase something or rush to use something, isn't necessarily needed. And I'm fairly sure 2 bottles isn't it. So what happens if you are exposed? I mean, a lot of us say, well, I don't do anything, but suppose you are homebound or you've got small ones in your home, and yet they didn't actually use the product, but they were around the product. So understanding that, yes, even though you may not use it, you can still be exposed because you've been in the area that was treated. So what might you want to look for? And this is really, really hard because even when we're training pest management professionals and healthcare workers, if you look at these symptoms, chest pain, shortness of breath, headache, vomiting, nausea, watery eyes, flu-like symptoms, that mimics a lot. The trigger or the difference is was something used recently that wasn't there before, and then you started feeling these effects. If they were somebody came in and cleaned the house in the morning and you came back home in the afternoon and the home was shut up and you still smell it, and by evening time you're having some of these symptoms, then it could be that you've got an acute reaction to the products that were used. Long term generally comes in this form to those who actually use them. They don't actually see it sometimes day in, day out, and yet there can be chronic on that. So the most popular product, and this popular product's been around for a while, are these handy dandy wipes. And I'm right with y'all. I like them. They're convenient. They're great to use. It's all everything I need to do stuff around my home. However, there's a couple of things that people need to understand when you're using these wipes. First of all, there's a couple of words that need to be reminded. For every registered pesticide product that the EPA registers, it must contain one of 3 words: caution, warning, or danger. Granted, they do make some products that are low in toxicity and they may not have a signal word, but if that does not happen, if the signal word is missing, they still will have this: keep out of reach of children. Keep out of reach of children means that really studies have shown, and we've seen this, children should not be using these products. Part of it has to do with just child development. Children as a whole, as we develop from birth to about age 25, it literally takes us that much time for our whole body to develop. So being exposed to some of these chemicals and getting them on our hands, and because we're children and we don't pay attention, mom and dad, we do this as well. Well, I mean, this can lead to problems down the road. So we like to recommend that, again, EPA has registered these products. You really want to use caution and make sure that you're not using them around children or others that may be chemically sensitive, unless, everyone knows what they're doing. So now we're going to look at the wipes, because just because it comes in a nice little plastic container and it has wipe on it, there are different brands of different types of wipes. So our first one, these are a sanitizing wipe. It is made for food contact surfaces. It's used so that the surface remains wet for at least 30 seconds, and it may take multiple wipes to literally get it washed down. Food contact surfaces and toys should be rinsed well with potable water after the appropriate contact time. Reason being is you sure as heck wouldn't want to put your child's toy after you cleaned it with something like this and then hand it to them and then might possibly be exposed. Even though this says it's plant-based and it's got an orange blossom scent, you and even though it says free from harsh chemical residues, you still do not want to take the chance of what might happen. And again, each time you wipe a surface, you should use new wipe. And finally, keep out of reach children. So most common wipe, I mean, again, I'm not endorsing any products. I am pulling the products that most of us have used for eons. Depends on where you buy it, is what's really on this label. But again, this is one of the #1 EPA registered disinfectant wipes for non-food contact surfaces. Again, it should remain, when you wipe, you're supposed to wipe it and it's supposed to stay on the surface for at least 4 minutes. And again, if you know you're going to use it after a while, you might want to go ahead and rinse it down. Actually, on this one, especially if I know that I'm not going to be in my kitchen for at least several hours, I can literally wipe these down and then just walk away. Generally by morning, all of that contact is gone. But you want to just make sure, if you were using these and you were doing it during food prep, do this, and you were constantly putting things back in contact with it, then yes, you would definitely want to clean with water in between. Again, after you use them, and I know we do this, I'm guilty of it, but when I get done using them, remember that washing your hands with soap and water. It's really important. Again, keep out of reach of children. And then do read the back of this. I've watched the fine print on these labels get finer in the last few months, but there are things like do wear gloves, don't expose surfaces, those types of things that you really want to be mindful of. And then there's this disposable hand sanitizing wipes, because these were really invented, if you remember, for some of us, we thought it was the greatest thing when they invented baby wipes for diapers back ages ago. And then it moved to, oh, I had wipes to wipe their hands when I went to the zoo, and then we got the hand sanitizer, and then we got the disinfecting and cleaning wipes. But understand this, hand sanitizing wipes are different than the wipes that we just talked about that would clean your kitchen counter. This is probably something that you would pack in a handbag or a diaper bag. And the difference on this is these wipes are actually regulated by the Food and Drug Administration. Because how the federal government does this is if it's a product that is on surfaces that kills something like a pest or bug or something like that, the US EPA register. If it is something that takes care of something on human, okay, head wipes, hand sanitizer, what we ingest in our food, all of that, then it's the Food and Drug Administration. So understanding that there's 2 regulatory bodies, but what's really important about this is, and this is where we have seen some interesting things thanks to COVID, is you either get non-alcohol formula or the alcohol formula. And generally the alcohol formula is flammable. The fire department, fire marshals have gone through schools, childcare centers, and been very cautious about this. So it's very important to understand, are you using an alcohol-based or non-alcohol-based? Again, part of this has to do with some of that legitimacy of finding stuff on the internet and not knowing. So again, looking at these alcohol wipes, you've got sanitizing alcohol wipes, and think of these as like the alcohol preps that you probably see at the doctor's office. All right. And then you've got the FDA regulated hand sanitizing wipes. And again, we use them in medical facilities, but this is the same type of wipe that you might be using in your diaper bag or in your car or wherever. So what EPA says is, since these are really more for just general sanitization, they're not for killing. Therefore, they don't fall under their list of registered disinfectants that can be used against the SARS-CoV. But again, really what they're also saying is FDA regulates some of this. So again, if the FDA regulates an alcohol wipe for your hands, EPA is not going to deal with it. But if it's a sanitizing wipe and it's supposed, and the label says it does more than just disinfect the surface, it cannot say COVID, but it can just say for normal germ, then yes, you can use it and it's okay. So a little bit about purchasing the wipes, because I thought this was timely. If you use the internet service, and it doesn't matter because even the, the big name distributors got hit with some fraudulent products, especially during last year. But you've always got to watch for that guy or gal that's trying to slip something through. Second of all, something you don't need at the house. You probably do not need any hospital grade anything. Wipes, cleaning solutions, anything. What you can buy at your local convenience store, grocery store, wherever you purchase everyday products is more than adequate for you. Because again, if you're going hospital grade, do you have all the personal protective equipment? And this means sometimes a Tyvek suit, means a respirator, it means goggles, special gloves. I don't think y'all need that at home, hopefully. And then what we really worry about, like I said, is this illegal. I mean, I get emails all the time from the EPA saying, "Oh, we want another one," and what's disturbing on the online stuff, it takes so much time for them to catch everything because they have to use various agencies and the public's help to locate what's going wrong. So again, proper disposable wipes. You've probably heard this, but compostable cleaning wipes, doesn't matter what kind of wipe it is, there are some others that are used in the restroom, aren't really good in your wastewater system. And you think, oh, well, I live in a big city and stuff. Yes, but think about this. Most of your sanitary sewer, your drainage pipes at your home are about 4 to 6 inches wide. Anything you put down there can get jammed and bends and cracks and stuff. So then what ends up happening is, while it might work, somewhere along the line, it could very well clog up your sewer. So this is just a life experience once well learned. Again, even though the ones that say that they're compostable, generally they're made out of cotton, wood pulp, or viscose. They do have some of those thermoplastic fibers, and I will not embarrass myself by trying to pronounce the names. But generally, if you find a compostable wipe, it will be from a wood-based fiber or bamboo. And while again it says it's earth friendly, think twice before literally sending it down your sanitary sewer. You know, if it's really compostable, unlike these that are non-compostable with the viscose and the plastic fibers, the compostable, if you've got gardening and stuff, you can lay this down and then put your mulch all over. Few precautions. Many of the ingredients in those wipes can cause health effects. So make sure that you understand, be aware that, you know, they can't irritate eyes, skin, trigger asthma, And even the inert ingredients can be problematic. You might want to also make sure you've got a well ventilated area. If it's a quarter bathroom, make sure that there's a window somewhere. And remember not to try and touch your face while you're doing all your cleaning and stuff, because remember, you might think, oh, well, I've got this, and then you do this, or then you do this, and that irritation goes one step further. Again, the wipes do have storage requirements, temperature limits. So sitting in the back seat of your car in the middle of summer might not be the best place to put it. Or sitting on the dash in the middle of winter, again, not a great place to put it. They do prefer ventilation requirements. Shelf life expiration. Again, making sure you store your chemicals separately. One of the things that is a public health component, we really do encourage you all for not putting your cleaning products underneath the sink where small children or even pets can get to it. Try storing it up high, try storing it in some place where they just randomly cannot be grabbed or gotten to, because again, safety first. You want to make sure that again, if you've got some type of strong chemical, you don't keep it with something else. So again, that they don't combine, and then you have some type of noxious gas that leads to a major health incident. Okay. So looking at household cleaning products, when we're looking at the household cleaning products, we're looking at things that actually either kill or slow that spread of a microorganism. What are microorganisms? Well, they're bacteria, viruses, protozoans, and fungi. It's mold or mildew, aka germs. Two of the most common antimicrobial pesticides. One is for public health, and the other one is non-public health, or what we refer to as general use. So public health settings, and you might think public health is different than what you thought, because what we're talking about is we're talking about those microbes that can make somebody sick, and they can be found. Two most common places in the home: bathrooms and kitchens. But now understand that restrooms are everywhere, and that again, there are different types of kitchenettes. In your home, high touch surfaces. In the hospital, high touch surfaces. Restaurants, public areas, and then food prep areas. So all of these areas, while you don't think that those are all public health areas, they are, because when you're in these areas, germs can transmit. Now, in non-public health settings, some of the microbes that can cause algae to spoil or rot, well, there are things in cooling towers. So you're thinking cooling towers and big units, but I also think AC units and AC condensate. Fuel. Well, we all have fuel around our homes and we don't think of that, but yes, fuel is part of the pesticide module. Textiles, paint, and paper products. So again, these are areas, just remember, where you can actually be, where there can be a crossover of contamination when it comes to being with products that can make you sick. So the three types of products that when we talk about cleaning, we talk about what we use. Most common, everybody's probably got some at the house, is a sanitizer. Generally, it required use 30 seconds to 5 minutes. It's household surfaces, it's food contacted surfaces. Again, limited germs that we actually transmit. Comes in a variety: sprays, liquids, gels, granulars. Again, this is the most common. Next to that are disinfectants, and disinfectants kill or prevent the growth of bacteria or fungi, and it can also work on certain viruses. This is where the US EPA, especially with SARS-CoV, stepped in and said, we need to be very careful about what product says that it can actually kill this virus. And you must prove that to us through testing. That's where it gets on the label. It's allowed to say what it kills. If it says on the label it kills or destroys and it lists specific things like COVID, like the flu, or something else, then it means that EPA has received data. And if they haven't, then they can actually go after that manufacturer for falsifying information. Generally, to be effective, it requires 10 minutes of surface time. And again, household surfaces, medical settings. Again, spray liquids, gels, granular. Then there's the sterilizers. This is generally done in medical hospital grade. As I train schools about what they do for their integrated pest management program and how they also deal with cleaning for COVID, we talked about this and said that the sterilization really should be left for medical grade folks, because in this area, what we're talking about is it actually it's the strongest type of cleaning and disinfecting, but what it does is it uses some type of microbe to actually kill the bacteria, fungi, viruses, or spores. And generally it's a liquid or a gas, and there is a lot that goes with this. Today, what we're really going to be focusing more on is sanitizer and disinfectants. So generally when we're talking about controlling microorganisms, germs, we're really talking about chemical control. We go to the store and we look at a shelf of a variety of products, and then we have to make a decision. Well, what are we going to buy? And the hardest part is, sorry about that, is not all chemicals are the same. And this is very, very hard, and we're going to talk about some of these chemical groups, the halogens, the heavy metals, the phenolics, hydrogen peroxide, the quats, which is the quaternary ammonium compounds, because that's always an easy thing to say. Alcohols, there's some aldehydes. So there's a lot of variety of products that you can use. But generally, when we're talking about what we find when we go to the grocery store, first one is the phenolics. They're inexpensive, they're readily available, and they are active against a wide range of bacteria, and generally they're called antiseptics. So to give you a common one, I put in Listerine, because I thought I would at least throw out something different than what you probably have heard in the last 12 months. Most of us are familiar with the hypochlorite. Yeah, this is the one that the compound is the active against virus, bacterial spores, and other pathogens. But what we're most familiar with is it's a chlorine bleach. And it's chlorine mixed with water, and it makes a sodium hypochlorite. Again, this has compound that has limited stability. So what we say by that is, you mix it up, yeah, you use it, but it doesn't really work when it comes in contact with a lot of organic matter. So again, if you were really working with a lot of dirt, it'd be kind of hard. At the same time, and this is why some folks actually do this, is they will mix bleach with something like ammonia, because they think, well, the bleach isn't doing enough. If I add this ammonia, I'll really get the better bang for my buck, and I'll get some really good cleaning going on. The bang for the buck is more than likely it will be a toxic vapor gas, and you're knocked out. Hopefully you're not dead. But this is one of those we caution time and time again. Do not mix bleach with ammonia. So one of the products that a lot of people, especially looking at something different, don't want to use harsh chemicals, is hydrogen peroxide. And yes, hydrogen peroxide's been around for a few decades, more like a few hundred years. It's very similar to water, except for it's got that extra oxygen atom, which again in the chemical world allows for its breakdown. But for us, what it does is that extra oxygen allows it to be an antiseptic and it kills. So it kills bacteria by destroying the cell walls. Why? Because the cell walls are very gentle. You put that peroxide in, bubbling, right? Then it's going and working at that bacteria. Again, one of the studies that came out not last year, it got promoted more last year. It was done in 2018, but it had to do with the fact that the study looked at bleach and peroxide when it went to mold and mildew on porous surfaces. So, say you had some mold and mildew around the house, around your bathroom, the tile, whatever, and we've all used bleach cleaners. Well, the study showed that really using just the straight hydrogen peroxide cleaner actually worked with a toothbrush, and it killed it and it was effective. It's fairly cheap, I'll tell you that. And when used correctly, can kill multiple germs, toxins, and bacteria. So this is why it's been promoted and it's considered green cleaning. If you want to use hydrogen peroxide, it's a 3% solution, undiluted in a spray bottle and sprayed on the surface. So if you bought the big jug of peroxide at the store and you had the right nozzle on it, you could literally put a spray nozzle on the top and just use that. Or you can buy yourself for probably under $5 a big jug of peroxide and a 99-cent spray bottle. And that's an easy cleaner. Just be careful because, again, because it is peroxide, if you use something around dark, it could actually bleach it. Do let it stand for several minutes. Again, appliances, countertops, cutting boards, bathtubs, mirrors, toilets, windows are all easy. And then allow, when you're using it as the disinfectant, allow those bubbles to subside. Then air dry or wipe with a dry, clean cloth. And something you might, and it depends on, what you got going on at home, but you want to keep clean either a mouth guard or a retainer. You can drop it in a little bit of peroxide and then rinse it out with water. You want to make sure the thermometer is, okay. Toothbrush, I mean, there's, you can use peroxide on a lot of stuff. Whereas this quaternary ammonium compounds, this quat, is pretty expensive stuff. I mean, some expensive stuff, inexpensive stuff. Again, most of ours comes with some type of cleaning agent. It is all purpose. It is found in a lot of different products, as illustrated in this image. It does kill bacteria and germs, very effective against salmonella and staphylococcus aureus or staph A. Again, helping to prevent the illness and infection from spreading from person to person. Because again, prior to COVID, these are things that a lot of us worry about. Staphylococcus transmission is a big problem between human contact. Anyone who comes in direct contact with quats can occur from spillage, can get skin dermatitis, inflammation, mucus, membrane irritation. That can be from runny nose to watery eyes to coughing, all of that stuff. And we do, those that work in the janitorial field, we do see a lot of respiratory reports later on, because again, if you're using this product day in and day out and it's not always in well ventilated areas, it can lead to problems later on. So just a little bit of review before we go about mixing products that can result in serious injury or death. Again, you mix bleach with ammonia, you get that chloramine gas. What does it look like? Coughing, nausea, shortness of breath, watery eyes, chest pain, throat and nose and eye irritation and wheezing. Well, what about vinegar? Because we've all got vinegar in our homes, right? You put the bleach and the vinegar together, again, that's a chlorine gas. That's also very irritating. Again, difficulty breathing, watery eyes, runny nose. Then you take bleach and you mix that with rubbing alcohol. This one is not really good. That's chloroform and hydrochloric muriatic acid. That is corrosive. If you put those two together, it can become very corrosive and you can get skin burns and everything else. Bleach with hydrogen peroxide, again, even though you're looking at it going, what, oxygen, salt, and water? Well, you put that through, and what happens is that fizzing, and again, if you're breathing it in, it could be too much too fast. Again, peroxide with vinegar, that muriatic acid liquid, that can also be used as a disinfectant, but it requires PPE. You get it? Shortness of breath. Long story short, don't mix two chemical products. It's never wise. If it comes from the store in a bottle, read the label. If you don't think it's doing enough, then look at what are you doing and why is it not getting clean? Because simply soap and water will do a lot. So we wrap up. Products that we use in and around our homes to clean, disinfect, and sanitize can be harmful if they're not used properly. So before you buy that product, read the label. If that means doing your homework and going to the manufacturing website or consumer reports, do it because you only get one help. Before you use the product, be sure to read the label. Make sure you know where you're supposed to be using it. Are there any precautions? Are you supposed to wear gloves or anything like that? And then finally, before you dispose of the product, be it extra liquid or the container, is there any precautions that need to be followed? Especially depending on where you live. You don't want to pour something down the drain and then have a problem with a septic or sanitary sewer. Think about you and your family. What are your needs? And make sound purchases. You don't have to hoard a bunch of wipes. You don't have to have gallons and gallons of cleaning products. Simple solutions can be done and found around your home. The harder part is implementing the work to get the family to help you do the cleaning around the house. To prevent the transmission of a variety of diseases, wash your hands. I mean, I know that sounds like a broken record, but really, wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. Routinely clean those high-touch surfaces. And if you're sick, stay at home. I got that advice years and years ago as a new employee, and that was pretty right. So if you're sick, stay at home. Don't give anybody else your terms. And then when you're out, practice all the things we know. Wash your hands, cough in your arm, and clean high-touch surfaces. At home, do implement routine cleaning at least once a week, if not more frequently, in those high-touch public areas, kitchen, bathroom. If grandma sits in the easy chair the whole time, grandma's easy chair at least once a week. Okay, you want to make sure that you're getting rid of the old and not worrying about letting it linger. Finally, we do have some resources for you. Most of this comes from the National Pesticide Information Center. They are the educational branch that allows us within extension and research work with the federal government to provide you great informational resources. There's a bunch of information. This link here is actually this graphic. So again, you can use this and, you know, help educate others about cleaning and disinfecting. And Liz will be sending you some additional information on resources as well. We thank you for participating today, and we look forward to seeing you at our next educational program.
All right, thank you, Janet. I don't see any questions, but I do see where Donna commented that she loves her hydrogen peroxide, as I do too. Learned a few things about that one. I did not realize a few things about hydrogen peroxide. I just knew it was pretty good to use. So does anyone have any questions that would like to ask Janet? You can go ahead and unmute. Right now, you don't have to put it in the chat box, but you can go ahead and ask her. You're welcome, Vivian. I'm glad you were able to join us. Thank you, Dick. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you both. I'm glad. I mean, I've been wanting to do this one for a little while, so thank you all for joining us today.
Okay, if no one has any more, doesn't have any questions or any more comments, again, thank you so much. And we'll be seeing you on the next one.